So to be clear, what happened is 16 Republicans in the month of December following the 2020 election got together. You filled out as a slate of electors as an alternative to the Democrat slate of electors because Joe Biden was awarded Michigan's electoral votes, 16 and all. That's why there were 16 of you. That's where this all started, correct?
That's it. We were asked to be gathered together to sign paperwork, to be turned in, not to replace the Democrat electors, but just in case any of the investigations came to any kind of fruition. Most of those investigations were just being launched at the time. The election was uncertain, and so we were duly elected electors for the Trump campaign, and so we showed up when we were asked to and signed the paperwork.
And so you signed the paperwork. You say you were asked. You mentioned that a couple of times. Asked by whom? In previous conversations, you said it was attorneys that asked you to do this, and you're following the advice of attorneys. Tell me who asked you to do this, and because this is a big surprise for a lot of folks. Go ahead.
You know, a lot of it is still vague to me, and I don't have any email communications with any of these people. But Laura Cox was our state party chair at the time. Somebody from her staff contacted all of us, asked us to be at the Michigan Republican Party office at 2 p.m. I remember the time. I think it was December 18th. And so we showed up, and there was no secret meeting. They love to talk about it being in the basement. The basement happens to be the only room in the Michigan Republican Party office that's large enough to hold that many people. It's where the conference room is. So we were downstairs in the conference room, and that was it.
All right, so here it is. It says the affidavit filed by the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, says reads in part, none of the 16 people who signed the document entitled Certificate of the Votes of the 2020 Electors from Michigan and was sent certified mail to the National Archives and Records Administration and the United States Senate Archives were legally elected or qualified as the 2020 Michigan electors for president and vice president. She's saying you knowingly committed fraud. She's saying that you knowingly entered into a conspiracy to commit fraud and voter fraud. And I'll get into some of the specific charges, but how do you respond?
Well, it's not true. I mean, first of all, we were duly elected Trump 2020 electors. And so when our leadership says, hey, we need you to turn in documentation in case it's needed, and this is not unprecedented, this has happened many times in history, of course, we all listened and complied. Two of the electors couldn't be there, so they sent their alternates, and everybody showed up, and we signed the paperwork that was prepared and put in front of us. Listen, Steve, I hate to say this, but the reason I wanted to talk to you is none of this matters. The truth is that Dana Nessel is working hand in hand with Jack Smith, and this is about dismantling Trump's campaign. They're literally prosecuting and jailing all of his top leaders. And in Michigan, that's me. So I feel like this is very personal. The Democrats know that they cannot beat Trump in 2024, so they have to use lawfare. That's their method, and that's what this is about. And I think people know it. I'm getting such overwhelming support. I feel like this is really Dana Nessel just helping Jack and putting blood in the water. You know, the Democrats are having a field day. They feel great about it, but that's all this is. It's just a show.
So this is a performance to go after Trump supporters, MAGA Republicans, as they call them. That's your take.
Yeah, I mean, how many 80-year-olds does Dana Nessel have to imprison to prove her point about the election in 2020? Because that's the majority of these electors, which are just good Republicans doing their duty and doing what they thought they were asked to do was the right thing to do. You know, she's going to put 82-year-old Rose Rook and, 78-year-old Cliff Frost into jail for this. I don't think so. I think that this is just, Dana being Dana. She loves to do this stuff, and she loves the attention. So, one of the things I'd like to say to the public, though, when they read these stories and they feel outraged and they wonder, who's next? Maybe I should never run for office. Maybe I should stop speaking out. The truth is, you're next. These are Cold War Soviet-style tactics that are being used and deployed on the American people. And it's because they want to silence us. They want to silence opposition. They want to shut us up. And so they have to use lawfare to do it. And that's why
I put fear into people. Yeah, you put fear into people because people are afraid of losing their life savings, their job, their reputation, all of these things, Meshawn, if what you're saying is true. Now, I want to give the folks a flavor, if you will, of Dana Nessel and her demeanor when she delivered this surprise news yesterday. Here's part of those comments. Listen.
We believe the evidence will demonstrate that there was no legal authority for the false electors to purport to act as duly elected presidential electors and execute the false electoral documents. Violating the law was the only avenue that remained in the desperate effort of these defendants, who we have charged with deliberately attempting to interfere with and overturn our free and fair election process, and along with it, the will of millions of Michigan voters. These defendants may have believed the now long debunked myths of vote tampering or ballot dumps. They may have felt compelled to follow the call to action from a president they held fealty to. They may have even genuinely believed that this was their patriotic duty. But none of those reasons or feelings provide legal justification to violate the law and upend our Constitution and our nation's traditions of representative government, self-determination, and a government by the people.
Now, Meshawn, I want to get to the point she made there, that you had to knowingly violate the law. You didn't knowingly violate the law by your own comments here today. You said you were directed by the party chair of the state of Michigan and the attorneys. We are an alternate state. I think you referred to it at one point as a lifeboat. In case some of these lawsuits play out differently, in case Donald Trump prevails in Michigan, he did not, but if he had, you were an alternate slate of electors. That was the point, correct?
That was the point. They used the word alongside. This paperwork will be turned in alongside the Democrat electors for Joe Biden in case they are needed and that its purpose was to be as a lifeboat in case they were needed. None of what we did was in secrecy. There was no oath of secrecy. We just showed up. We signed the paperwork that was put in front of us by the attorneys, and we knew that somebody was going to turn it into the archives. None of this was shrouded in secrecy. In fact, we were very public. The post that we did when we went Facebook Live on that day is still available on my Facebook page on December 18th, where we clearly explained that we are not trying to replace Democrat electors. So that was
right. Now, I want to point out one more thing here. She says that intent doesn't matter, your beliefs don't matter, none of that matters. Well, according to David Coleman, an attorney for the Great Lakes Justice Center, everything that she pointed out there in her comments, well, they do matter. Your state of mind does matter. What you believe does matter. I want to play that for you. I want you to respond to this. Go ahead.
Each of those say you have to have the specific intent to defraud or injure. Now, the last group just says defraud. But the idea is they had to specifically and knowingly sign that electoral document that was submitted to the National Archives and to the federal government, that they knew it was being done with the intent to defraud. I think that's going to be a very tough hill for the Attorney General's office to climb.
I think David is spot on there in his reading of the law, of the statute. What do you make of that?
Oh, completely spot on. I had many people text me and call me after David's interview this morning, and he's absolutely right. I mean, I'm no attorney. Dana Nessel is supposed to be the top attorney in our state. It sounds like she has absolutely no idea what she's doing. Maybe she decided to pull all this together after a phone call with Jack Smith after a couple of Bloody Marys. I'm not sure. But I think what we all know is that this is not a criminal prosecution. This is political persecution. And that's exactly what it is. We can all see it for exactly what it is. Dana Nessel is a disaster. And I'm pretty sure that the judicial system will listen to people and leaders like David Coleman, and they will see this for exactly what it is. I mean, one of the fellow electors with me, told me afterwards she thought she was signing a sign-in sheet for the meeting. So, there was no criminal intent by any of these people, and certainly not myself, who I'm just one of 16 electors. The fact that I went on to be co-chair of the party is what they keep focusing on, but I'm just one of 16 electors that were asked to show up and turn in paperwork to be submitted alongside the Democrat electors for Joe Biden in case it was ever needed. That's it.
And alongside that now, 60 to 80 years in prison. 60 to 80 years in prison, something like that. Meshawn, I'll give you the last word.
I'm being told that I'm being charged with forgery for signing my own name. It's my name. I signed it. I was there. onto a sheet of paper. I don't understand how that could ever be forgery or election fraud or any of this. So it's like I said, this is not a criminal prosecution. This is political persecution.